Hello and a warm welcome to the Open Treasury podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and analysis in corporate cash and treasury management. This show is brought to you by CTMfile.com and the Treasury News Network, where treasury professionals learn and share the information that matters most. My name is Pushpendra Mehta, and my guest for today is Jeffery, Managing Partner, a Strategic Treasurer. Welcome back to the Open Treasury podcast, Craig.
Push, it's good to be here again.
Great. For the benefit of our CTMfile audience, we will begin our conversation by discussing the 11th topic and the 12th article in a series on leading practices in corporate treasury published on CTMfile.com. This article is about process mindset. Craig, delivering a superior experience is a key part of what process mindset is all about. Put simply, to facilitate and improve processes, the treasurer and his or her team need to think process, and that means they must ensure that treasury is helping the organization succeed by taking a process-centric view. Craig, how do you define a process-centric view, and when looking at the overall efficiency and risks, why is it imperative to optimize the entire process?
How do we define a process-centric view? Well, it includes controls and efficiency, but let me take a step back on that as well. So we think of a technology stack or a conceptual technology stack described as, data, connectivity, systems, and then the last area would be reporting and analytics. The process view encompasses the first three: data, connectivity, and systems. And so it can be multiple systems, can be other counterparties. And so when we talk about connectivity, we're talking about inside the organization and with our trading partners. So when we think about how do we get control and efficiency, the process mindset has to take place in light of the technology structure and your organizational structure. None of these are apart or can be completely forgotten when we say process-centric. But having a process-centric mindset allows us to unify our thinking around the process, and so that our organizational structure and our technology stack fit. That's a key part of it. And your question was about efficiency and risks, and why is that imperative or vital to optimize the entire process. We're familiar with the term of holistic or comprehensive. When we think about what is a process, what's a handoff, we can either think at a microscopic level or what's in our particular business area, who's upstream or downstream from us in our company, or we can also think about what is the process end-to-end to end-to-end with our trading partners. So if I create something that's like, hey, this helps me with my payments, I'm moving towards electronic, digital, I pump out information, send it to someone else, but I don't contemplate how they receive it. My payables is their receivables. If I don't take a comprehensive view, I create problems downstream, which in turn splashes back on me. If they don't know how to apply what I sent them electronically, they're calling my AP group. What was this for? And so now I've created efficiency on my side, created a broken process on the other, which created a feedback loop and was very negative. So a process-centric view and a comprehensive look at these things is essential if we're trying to achieve overall efficiency, reduction in risk, and support of a well-controlled process.
Craig, you mentioned the words upstream and downstream. My next question to you is, why does the integration of both upstream and downstream processes hold the greatest potential for corporations looking to compete globally?
Any organization deals with customers and vendors that they're working with. If you just look at your own world, you're not going to be as efficient as you can be. And so anybody dealing with the complexities, even if you're in a regional or in a single country, there's a level of complexity there. But the more you expand, the more you're global, you're dealing with different currencies, different financial institutions, different communication systems, different payment rails. The idea of I need to look upstream and downstream and solve that with process structure. It could be banking structures, services, how I'm organized. All of these have to be contemplated up and downstream or across the comprehensive role. And the more complex the world is, the more important it is that we look upstream and downstream on a comprehensive or, including all of these items into our solution, into our process design.
I'm glad you mentioned the word including, because my next question is about tunnel vision. Specialization is an essential component of building expertise within an organization, and it injects efficiency into the workforce. However, specialization can foster a type of tunnel vision or silo mentality in many employees. This can create unintended consequences. For example, when fighting against a silo view or functional myopia, it is advisable that the treasury staff observe all awkward and inefficient handoffs. I know you have said that handoffs are often where the greatest risks reside. Why so, and why should controls be part of the process and not bolted on?
Baked in as opposed to bolted on. I remember saying that in a presentation a long time ago. Sometimes you have to put a control, you have to bolt on a control because you already have an existing process. A weakness was found that has to be addressed very rapidly. And so there's an extra step added that might be very awkward, may not flow with the process. And because we have to address that concern, we bolt it on. But all controls should be built into the process, incorporate into them as soon as possible, rather than the separate step. Some of the compliance and regulations that exist, we need to make sure we're using those to the best of our ability to provide better control, compliance, of course, and make it so that it's either helps us be more efficient or it doesn't add to the cost of what goes on. So we have a more compliant, more efficient process or equally efficient process by baking these things into the organization. But to your question about handoffs are, why are they the greatest risk? And every handoff usually means it's a point of exposure. I'm going from one system to another, or from one person to another, or person to system. Each of those requires some sort of validation, checking, control activities. They're points of cost, they're points of errors, and they're points of inefficiency. And that's where controls are exploited by criminals oftentimes. So there's not much good with handoffs. Sometimes we have to have handoffs, but not much good comes out of handoffs. And so this idea of how do I reduce those handoffs? How do I make more of those handoffs to be, system to system, as opposed to now I have a handoff, I've got a balancing routine, I've got control lists and control ledgers. Avoiding those lends itself to better opportunities.
It is said that automating manual processes makes treasury more efficient. In your opinion, what is a sign that your corporation has cleaned and automated processes? And can you explain or enumerate one or two key benefits of automating processes?
Where does inefficiency come from? It comes from defects, errors, broken processes, spit out errors that have to be repaired. So defects lead to one of the biggest problems for inefficiencies. They don't just take redoing the work. It's multiple times, sometimes as much as 10 times the amount of work to fix a problem than to get it right the first time. So defects lead to that. What leads to defects? Two things: manual handoffs, manual processes. I'm saying that as the first item. The second is a poorly designed process. Whether you automate a process or not can still be very inefficient and create an increased number of defects because there's not the right controls in place. It's missing data, creates all kinds of issues flowing through. So defects are caused by bad processes and manual handoffs. And so a well-designed process with automation helps eliminate the biggest source of the greatest inefficiency. So that allows for scale. It allows for a clean process, a well-controlled process, and a well-designed process. So that's an automated process that is designed well is going to be the most efficient. It's the most scalable. You asked about what are the benefits of automating. With a process mindset means you can scale up rapidly. The fluctuation of volume won't impact your staffing needs hardly at all compared to more manual processes. Tripling your work means you have to double your workforce. There's a much closer correlation to growth and adding staff. Whereas if you have a well-automated process, the scale, it's a much different factor. A tenfold increase might mean you have to add a few people or add some percentage of staff to handle it because the process and the system handle it. So that's probably one of the biggest benefits. The second has to do with control and overall efficiency. We already talked about the tie into automated and clean processes, reducing defects, which leads to efficiency or lack of inefficiency, right? You knock out the inefficiency. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with David Levine, who's with Bottom Line Technologies a number of years ago. And he said this, talking about mechanics and thinking of processes. It's like with manual processes, the most you could possibly do is reach 3 sigma of quality. That's peak with manual processes. With automated processes, you can reach 6 sigma. You can reach that level. That's a good way to look at it, is you can't achieve that quality unless your processes are automated and well designed. And you can't just say, I'm going to automate a garbage process or a terrible process. You have to look at both of those together. So 1 and 2 are related to efficiency and control.
Well, thank you, Craig, for the incisive analysis. These, I hope, will be of tremendous benefit to the CTMfile audience, whom I would like to thank as well for joining us on this edition of Open Treasury. Please subscribe and look in the show notes for the article links. Thank you.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.